All right, so we're here, day 2 filming. I obviously have the same clothes on. Sunny, however, has made a change of clothes, and you made a change of clothes. Why?
Because yesterday I was so much on my knees, and this thing that calls the seam, it was right in between my knees and it was hurting so much. So I had to change. I never been on my knees so much. Anyways.
He's a sensitive darling. So now we're going to go into a situation where we have a low knee shield and we're having a hard time getting to an underhook. Our partner's playing more of a cagey game, and we also are in a situation where we can't get to an overhook, where my partner's not willingly putting in an underhook and overextending herself, maybe because she's afraid of a triangle or the sumigation we looked at. For whatever reason, we're in a half guard and your partner's playing with a cagey game, but I can still manage to make grips on my partner's wrists. Okay, she's not playing completely negative from here, but she is playing more reserved. When I see this, and you'll see this a lot in the rolling footage. Whenever you see this, we come into a situation where my partner's in here, I have a cross shoulder post, and we're playing in like so. All I'm going to look to do is I'm going to look to monitor my partner's near wrist, like so. Okay? Now, once again, you can go into all of your arm drag grips that we talked about before. Okay, this time, instead of taking a butterfly hook out, obviously, we just start from an outside knee position, and from here, we can go into a drag. If my partner pushes into me, we can go into all of our knee levers, and you have the same series here with the arm drag that you had from the butterfly hook, okay? And in addition, you have the ability to insert your butterfly hook, you have the ability to start elevating your partner, forward shifting into a seated guard, and playing with all of your seated guard options as well. So just understand that from a knee shield, you have all these typical arm drag grips here. Understand that if your partner has a hand outside and behind your rib cage and an elbow inside, you also have the option to start pulling your partner into an underhook, like so, where now you can make all the transitions that we looked at previously. Another great option you have when your partner has a hand inside, a lot of times she's posting her chest, she's playing here, and we're hand fighting, and I just subtly look to start hand fighting, they're scooping the legs, and I just subtly make a grip on my partner's wrist like so, okay? Now, this is oddly effective. It doesn't look like it should work, but it's very, very effective. And even more so with a gi, because you have the ability to take a cross cuff grip and a tricep grip with a 2-on-1, and it's impossible for your partner to pull out of that. Okay, with this, it's not as robust because you just have a 2-on-1 on your partner's hand, but nonetheless, you still get extremely good, at least off balances, and most of the time sweeps. Okay, I want to look to start pressuring into my partner like so. So that from here, as she goes to move towards me, I'm pulling, I'm pushing, I just have a subtle grip on my partner's wrist. I wait for my partner to start pushing into me, and as she goes to push into me, I think she's going to look to control my head, okay? So normally, I'm playing from a position where I always have an inside bicep tie, and I'm never allowing my partner to reach towards my head. In this situation, I'm going to bait my partner to reach in towards my head. So my hand's going to stay in here, so if I need to at any point, I can move into an inside bicep tie. But I'm not going to monitor my partner's biceps so aggressively that she can't even begin to come towards me. I'm just going to play in here. So if at any point if she pulls this hand free and gets to my head, I can always clear with an inside bicep tie and move my head out and away. So I'm just going to take a subtle grip on my partner's wrist like so, and my hand's going to come in here somewhere. Right? I don't want it down here because now I can't take an inside bicep tie if she does get to my head. I just bring my hand in here towards my chest. Now, as my partner goes to lunge forward and control my head, I'm just going to invite her in, and I'm going to push her elbow to my center line, like so. So as she goes to come in chest to chest, I invite her chest to chest, and I just scoot my hips with a reverse shrimp underneath my partner's body like so. And now, from this situation, you find yourself in a position where your partner's hand is wedged under her own chest. So the weight of her body now is coming forwards, and she can't sit back on her heels because of my knee position behind her tailbone. So now when she goes to pull her right arm out, it gets stuck in place, and it only takes a half a second for me to just lever my knees out and over to the side and make a quick transition into a top half guard where we can go into our passing. So it looks pretty stupid when you see it, but when you have it done to you, it's very, very effective. And if you're not ultra disciplined with this hand position, you get knee levered pretty easily from here. Okay, so my partner starts to come in, and we look to start hand fighting and make a subtle grip here. Now our hand comes in and we invite our partner to our head, always having a hand inside. So if at worst case scenario, I go to knee lever, my partner pulls the hand out, like so, from here I can always look to pull my knees into my chest and then use that to move into my underhooks and counterattacks. Okay, so the very worst case scenario, I use the initial off balance to get into attacks of my partner. What I can't have is I gotta have my hand drifting down here somewhere, where now I gotta knee lever my partner, she pulls the hand out, she gets to my head, and now she starts going in and crushing me with heavy cross faces. So my hand just stays up here. So worst case scenario, I gotta hit the knee lever, she pulls the hand out, and now from here we can start going into all of our follow-up attacks with our pinch headlocks and variations with underhooks, okay, or scooping into the far leg. So we have a hand in like so. As she goes to come in and crush me, I just invite my partner in, and I just scoop with a reverse shrimp underneath my partner, and I get a wedge behind her tailbone. So she goes to come in heavy chest to chest, and I just invite her in like so. Now I place my foot outside the knee, I step foot to foot, and when she goes to base now, she finds it a difficult thing to do, okay? From this situation, we go to take our partner over with the lever, and we just shoot an underhook into place, and we gain top position. So what this will look like, I just subtly grab a grip of my partner's wrist. We're playing in here like so. As my partner goes to come in and start crushing me, I'm just playing here. I just subtly make a grip, even just monitoring my partner's hand without a grip. So that now from here, as she goes to come in, I invite her in, and we just hit a knee lever, out and over to the side, and we take our partner up and over. Okay? So just a basic knee lever with a one-on-one. I know it doesn't look very advanced or like it's gonna work, but it can be very effective if done properly. All right, so now let's look at entering into the legs off of this failed knee lever. All right, now you have to understand that this knee lever is different than the one that we did before, okay? Reason being, the knee lever that we did before, I had my partner's elbow completely across the center line and the shoulder across the center line. So number one, it's very hard for her to pull her arm out of this dragging position to base her hand out. And number two, because of the orientation of her body, it's almost impossible for her to reach with her left hand across and base out and stop me from taking over with the knee lever. With the situation like so, when I only have a one-on-one grip, number one, it's relatively easy for her to pull her hand out, in which case, as we talked about, we can easily go back into an underhook situation where we can take our partner up and over the right shoulder, where if she does pull her arm out from this situation, I just take everything up the post to my partner's hip, and we just lift our two knees above our right shoulder. Like so, okay? So worst case scenario, we get flattened out from this situation, and my partner has a heavy crossface in place, we go to the hip. If I have an inside bicep tie, I stay with the inside bicep tie. And now from here, my whole thing is just to lift everything right shoulder and jack an underhook up like so. Okay. Moreover, if I go to take my partner over, because that shoulder isn't completely across the center line, as she goes to pressure into me, the shoulder is basically right next to my shoulder, which makes it possible now for her to take her arm and reach over and post on the floor. So now when I go to lever my partner over, I actually do run into her post hand. And now it's hard for me to take her over. She has the time now to just rip her hand out. And now it's not wedged between our chests anymore, so it's just my hand versus her hand. The hand comes out, and then she posts on the floor, okay? So this is a different knee lever with different gripping than the one that we looked at before. So we have to have different reactions, okay? Our first reaction, like I spoke about, is when your partner pulls this hand out. Okay, so from a situation where she goes to come in towards me, and I go to neither, she rips the arm out like so. If I miss the cross face, I go to the hip with an inside elbow. If I just try to lift the underhook and she moves her head position over my elbow, I'm gonna get crushed from here. So my whole thing is to force her head into a center line shift and bring her head from over my left shoulder to over my right shoulder. The way that I do this is by forming concave shoulders with an inside hand, an inside elbow, and my two knees pulling my partner up, like so. So as she gets to keep her head in position, I just lift everything right shoulder. And I can easily start to go into all of the follow-up attacks of my partner. If I have an inside bicep tie, like so, from this situation, I look to start taking everything up and over the right shoulder. I don't go down to the hand and hip. If I have the hand inside, there's no reason to do this. I can easily clear my head. So as she goes to put a strong crossface in, I just lift my elbow, and everything comes up right shoulder. And now we can start going into our partner's legs. If we find ourselves in a situation where instead our partner bases with the opposite hand, so this hand stays trapped, but this opposite hand comes in and posts over the head. Whenever I see this, now there's no sense in going back in this direction because all of my partner's weight is on this side. Whenever I see this, I just continue the motion and I post to my partner's tricep with a V grip. Like so. So from here, I can just extend and move from a situation where I'm flat on my back to a situation where I'm on my left hip and shoulder. Like so. And now from here, we just throw our left knee to our partner's hip. The battle from here is going to be whether or not I can get my left knee to my partner's knee or hip before she can get her knee back to the floor. So if she gets her knee to the floor first, she comes back into a half guard. If I get my knee to her hip and she goes to bring her knee to the floor now, I get into an ashigarami. Now, because you started from an outside position with your leg, you have to understand here, I didn't start with the butterfly hook. I'm not in a Rimi ashigarami anymore. I'm in a mutual ashi, where now we both have a situation where we can attack each other's legs. So she can attack my legs, and I can attack her legs. That's why it's imperative that from here, I look to start hiding my feet on my partner's far hip, and we can start going into attacks on our partner's legs. Okay? Or that you start pushing your partner away, making space, and feeding your leg inside. That's a whole other subject here. But nonetheless, just understand that your legs are going to be in a different position because you started from an outside leg position. Okay? So 2 great options and responses to your knee lever failing. 1 is from the situation. You got to hit a knee lever, she goes to come in, and my partner, for whatever reason, bases her right hand out, like so. Whenever I see this, if I miss the inside bicep tie and she has a crossface, I go hip and inside elbow. I go underhook. And now I don't just use my arm. What brings her up over my right shoulder and forces her head into a center line shift is my knees coming to my chest over my right shoulder up into this upper quadrant here. So from here, as she goes to put a strong crossface in, go ahead. It's very difficult, and now we can go to follow-up attacks. Okay? If we have an inside bicep tie, now there's no need to go down to the hip. I just lift my elbow and pummel my head out. So actually, let's keep a strong crossface. You have an inside bicep tie. We use that to make a transition into all of our follow-up attacks. If, on the other hand, your partner posts the opposite hand, so her hand gets wedged in place, she posts her opposite hand. Now from here, she posts the hand, but there's always going to be that extra second or so where it's going to take her to pull this hand out. She's eventually going to get it out. From a situation where her head is over mine, her own chest and body weight wedges her hand in place. When she goes to pull it out, it's not an easy thing. But the second her hand moves over, now her chest and her head move away. Now there's nothing stopping her from just pulling her hand free, and now she's out. That's fine. That's all the time we needed to post my partner's tricep, create an angle, and throw our legs into place. For now from here, we can go into all of our various attacks and go into winning positions. So 2 good options depending on what your partner does. If your partner pulls out the initially trapped arm, we go into an underhook and we use that as our follow-up underhook attacks. If your partner posts the arm across the body, then we just post a tricep and go into attacks on our partner's legs instead. I just forgot to add this in the last clip, and I wasn't going to refilm it, so I'm just going to add it on to this one here, just so you guys have just this mental connection. Just as we spoke about before, although the knee levers are different, if your partner goes to come in towards me and I go to hit a knee lever. If your partner from here backsteps with this leg and then attempts to rebound and come back, just understand that you can hit the same butterfly hook with the sumigachi action that you could before with the opposite with the drag knee lever. So if my partner backsteps from here, she gives me the inside knee position and allows me to bring my knee up to my chest. Whereas before, I couldn't get my knee back in because obviously we're trapped in a half guard. So when she goes to back step and recover, I just put the inside foot in place. And now from here, as she goes to start coming into a back step, it makes it easy for me to just start lifting with that Sumigachi action. The good news is, because her hand is trapped, when she goes to pull it out, now she's so far tilted that her elbow actually runs into the floor. Okay? And when she goes to base out, all the weight is on that arm, and it makes it easy for me to lift my partner up and over, and then from here come up into a situation where I can move to various hand and head positions. So just so you make that connection to the last drag, or the last knee lever, where you use an arm drag, you can use the same exact same exact butterfly hook if your partner does try to backstep. And so this time, I just bring an underhook in place right away, and as she goes to come towards me, I just lift with the Sumigachi. And now because her hand is still wedged in place, and her elbow, even if it comes out, just runs into the ground, it makes it easy for me to hit Sumigachi out and over to the side. So that should have been on the last clip, but I just forgot to add it, and I wanted to show you guys, even though we did it already, I wanted you guys to understand that you can use the same Sumigachi action if your partner backsteps from this gripping variation. All right, so now let's just, before we go into the new stuff with the far arm drag, let's just look at the Kimura from the low knee shield and the main differences between locking a Kimura from a butterfly half guard versus a knee shield half guard. So we have a Kimura locked, like so. Okay, this setup is going to remain relatively the same. My partner goes to come in towards me, and she has a situation where I feel like I cannot get any grips of my partner from here. When she goes to come in towards me, I just can lock. I can go up and over, and once I lock this pseudo Kimura here, whenever she goes to move around now, it's pretty easy for me to start locking into a full Kimura and then going into my attacks from here. Okay. If I find myself in a situation where I lock from a butterfly guard, I have the ability to, one, start elevating my partner in multiple different directions and moving her around more than I do with a knee shield half guard. Okay, because I can elevate my partner, I can scoot underneath my partner, I can get her moving. Okay. In addition, if my partner goes to roll in certain directions, I can sweep her much easier. If she posts her elbow inside of my hip from here and goes to stop me from taking her over, it's pretty easy here with a Sumigachi action to start lifting. When she goes to fight to get up from here, it's pretty easy to hop over my partner and use that lifting action with the Sumigachi leg to take my partner up and over. When I have the Kimura from a knee shield situation, from this position, it makes it much easier for me to keep my partner's posture broken because I can extend my knee into my partner's hip and I can pull her upper body forwards. So when she goes to posture up from here, it's a very difficult thing to do. Whereas when I have a butterfly hook, I can keep her posture broken to some degree with my elbow positioning, but when she goes to posture up, a strong person is going to be able to posture up to a certain degree. There's only so much I can do with this elbow. But when I have my knee in my partner's hip and I'm pushing the hips away and pulling the upper body towards me, now when she goes to posture, it's going to be almost impossible for anyone to posture from here. So if you're dealing with someone who's very strong and just wants to explode upwards and just limp the arm out, I always recommend first going in with the knee shield, extending the body first, and then working from there. Okay? Now, once we're in the situation and we have a full knee shield locked, my partner can look to start going in and sitting to a hip. Okay, like so. Now, the issue is when I have a knee shield, as she goes to sit, it's going to be hard for me to come on top from here. Okay, the reason being, as my partner puts an elbow inside my hip, it's going to be impossible for her to V-grip my ankles, okay, because my legs are locked. So if she tries to just V-grip and step and backstep, she can't because I have a strong connection to her. When she puts an elbow inside of my hip, and now I got to come up on top, it's hard for me because there's no lifting action with my left foot. So as we both go to race to top position, I get up, and then she just moves her hips back, and she pushes me back down to the floor. So you're going to have to find yourself in situations where I have a knee shield, and as I go to get up, my partner goes to get up with me. I have to use more rotation in order to start misdirecting on my partner. So as she goes to start coming up on top of me, I use rotational aspect where I just roll from my shoulders from my right shoulder across to my left shoulder. And now instead of coming on top of my partner, I create back exposure instead. So that's a pretty big difference from having a butterfly half guard, where my partner just sits to the hip immediately. Now, as we both go to fight to get up, she can put a hand inside my hip. And now from here, as we both go to fight, it's pretty easy for me to win that battle if I want to get on top. If she sits from a knee shield half guard, and I go to start fighting and winning that battle, it's going to be hard. So from here, I just tuck my head, I look towards my partner's triceps, and as she goes to get up, go ahead. I can always create back exposure to some degree, okay? Or I can always sit my partner down with that rotation. So if she's here, she goes to sit through. Now as she goes to get up, I can just sit her into a T-Kimura, okay? So a couple variations there. In addition, if your partner postures out of the Kimura, okay, and of course there are many different things that you can do from here, many different variations when you have a Kimura, but these are just specific to half guard. If your partner postures out of the Kimura, my leg entrances are going to be a little bit different from here because my leg starts on the outside. So I'm going to have to start firing across or going to inversions, whereas if I have a butterfly hook in place, I have full inside position. Now I can start scooping and my legs are more protected from here, okay? So some just major variations when you're locking a Kimura versus in a half butterfly guard versus a full knee shield butterfly guard, okay? And I recommend, if you have the Kimura and you're going against someone very explosive and slippery, I recommend always starting with a knee shield first to keep the posture broken by putting the elbow on the back of the delt, and then from here, extending the knee into the hip. So when a strong person tries to explode up, the posture stays broken. And now from here, you can make decisions on where to go based on their reaction and such. Okay, so just some variations there before we move on to new stuff as far as butterfly half versus a knee shield half locking the Kimura. All right, so now let's talk about the forearm drag from a knee shield half guard. You have to understand that there are some risks involved with this, and the move in itself is not very high percentage, but if you don't respect it, you will get dragged. Now, let's talk about first why I didn't show it from a butterfly half guard. I never showed using a drag grip from a butterfly half guard for one simple reason. When you go for a drag and you reach across your partner's body, it's very easy for her to start taking her right hand to feed through into a darce strangle. And then from here, if the wrist comes out, you get caught in a situation where you get locked into a darce. And now it takes time for you in order to take this foot out to attempt knee levers. All right, we're gonna look at knee levers from the situation from a knee shield half guard when we bait a darce to go in for a knee lever, but it's gonna make sense in the next few moves, okay? The reason being I didn't show it from a butterfly half guard is because it takes too much time to get your foot out, and by the time you get your foot out, the knee lever's gone, and your partner already has a darce locked, okay? The risk, again, is that when you reach across your partner's body for the drag, she locks into a darce, which is fine. I want to bait that sometimes, okay, but you have to know what you're doing from here. Now, let's first go into the drag itself. The drag itself is not very high percentage, but it does lead into knee levers when your partner goes for a darce, or leg entrances / underhooks when your partner pulls the arm out. So she has to respect it to some degree. So we're in here, we're playing a low knee shield, and from the situation, I go and I lock a drag grip. My whole goal is to pull my partner's shoulder down to my shoulder as I move my shoulder up towards hers. What I can't have is this big disconnect where she can just straighten her arm, and now she's gone, okay? So I play a subtle game where I just grab my partner's wrist like so, and then I catch up high by my partner's armpit. Now from here, I'm just gonna look to connect her two shoulders together so that her wrist flares inside of her elbow. Okay? I don't want her wrist out beyond this line. I want her wrist further towards her body than her elbow is. Okay? So I want to flare her elbow out towards me. From this situation, as she goes to pull away, it's not impossible, and it's not really that much of a robust grip. But if she stays here and she doesn't pull out and away, then I can drag her. If she does pull out and away, then we're going to go into leg entrances, which is what we're going to look at next. So I use this mostly as a dilemma game where if she doesn't do anything, I go for the drag, and if she does, it gives me a follow-up attack. Okay. From this situation, all I'm going to look to do is pendulum up with my left leg to my right elbow. So I just kick my left leg out, and I just sit to my right elbow. So now my partner goes to pull out. It's not an easy thing anymore because she's running out of range of motion to posture up because we're the same height. And from this situation, I'm going to look to scoot out and away and insert a left leg butterfly hook. So that now from here, you're basically forward shifted into a seated guard, and now you have all of your follow-up attacks from this situation. Or you can start moving into a situation where you go into drags on the opposite side, and you go into your partner's back. Okay? Or you can start going into seated guard options where you go and you elevate your partner. So you're basically moving across the body with an arm drag grip. Again, the amount of times you're actually going to hit a far arm drag on people are not many times. Okay, it's a pretty low percentage in the drag itself, but it has to be respected or countered. Okay, so we're going to be playing a game here where our partner goes, she's coming in, and she's going to come in and crush me, and we just manage to get a grip on our partner like so. Okay, we're playing in here. From this situation, I come in and I catch my partner's far tricep, and we're just going to kick our left leg through, and we're going to sit up to our elbow. So as she goes to pull us out and away, she pulls me up with her. Now, worst case scenario, I lose the arm here. I go into underhooks, or I go into attacks on my partner's legs. Okay? Best case scenario is she doesn't do anything. She can't manage to free the grip, and I just move back and away, insert my butterfly hook, and now from here, we're playing with an arm drag grip from a seated guard. Okay? This is the far arm drag grip. Okay, the risk associated is number one, the move in and of itself is not very high percentage. You're not going to drag someone across the body very often. And you can put yourself in a very tight Dar strangle as you're doing this because you're reaching so far across your partner's body to go for the drag. All right? But if you know what you're doing, you can use this very effectively for follow-up attacks with knee levers and leg entrances. And that's what we're going to look at now. Now we're going to look at an inherent risk that we deal with when we're going for a far arm drag. Okay, again, the move itself is not very high percentage, but I use this to bait my partner going in for Dar strangles. Okay, the thing is, when someone sees your arm go across the body, what everyone thinks is, okay, I'm going to shoot to a Dars. Whenever my partner shoots to a Dar strangle, her whole goal is to lunge forward and just lock her hands. Okay, so if I go for the far drag and she rips the wrist out, she has to come in and shoot and come into me so the butt comes away from the heels and lock her hand to a 10-finger grip. And now once she gets here, everything else is a lot easier for her. Okay. Understand something. When she moves towards you, this gives you the ability to hit knee levers. And because she's bringing her hand far inside your hip, it makes it easy for me to knee lever. Now, the thing is, I can't knee lever my partner and knee lever her right over into a Dars, and she finishes the Dars on the other side. So as I go for this drag, and she frees the wrist, and she goes to shoot for a knee lever, I just grab my partner's wrist with a V grip with an inside grab like so. Now, as she goes to lunge towards me, I just take my elbow and I clamp it down. Okay. What she wants is to lunge forward, like so, and lock her hands. Right now, you notice her head is over my left shoulder. Okay. What I want is to get her head behind my buttocks the best that I can. So as she goes to lunge forward, I just clamp my left elbow down and I move her head further than she wanted to go. She wants to come straight forward over my head. So when I clamp my elbow down, I move her head off center. So now when she goes to lock onto her hands, it's more awkward. It's not impossible, but it's more awkward. And now from here, I just shovel my hips under my partner, and I hit a quick knee lever out and over to the side. And now from here, we can easily sit our partner down to the floor. And because her hand is all the way across from here, it's going to be hard to put a crossface in. So as your partner's going over, just think about punching an underhook in as we go over, like so. And then now from here, you can either one, transition to a crossface as you're going, like so, or two, if you land, just think about driving your head to the far shoulder so that you can't re-pommel an underhook in. I don't want to land here and she pommels her hand back inside and now she has an underhook. I just drive my head across to the far shoulder, and then as we land, my hand can come out, and then we can punch a crossface in like so. Okay? So we play around the far drag and we bait a darce. All right, I know this sounds crazy that you want to put yourself in a darce triangle, but your partner doesn't actually get to lock her hands. So we play in like so, and we're playing around. They get to a far drag grip, my partner shoots through. The second I see this, the second I see this hand coming through, I capture. Now, what I can't have is her head coming more over my right shoulder, and now she goes to lock her hands and she gets a strong grip in like so. The second I see this hand come through, I'm immediately here. So now, when she goes to lock her hands, it's not an easy thing. Now just continue the motion of going out and underneath. Now, she's going to unlock her hands from here and try to come back on top of me. From the situation, as she goes over, her hand is always going to inevitably come through. And now, as we go to come out, she doesn't want her hand to get caught across her body. So her hand's going to come back across the body. And then from here, as we come up, we go to the far shoulder. And we put the cross face in. So we're playing with this far drag grip. She goes to shoot through. The second I see this, I'm immediately coming in, clamping the elbow down, and leaning her out to the side like so. Okay? Now, from the situation, I just put everything in place, and immediately she's off balance. Right? Because of the situation where her shoulder's so far across my center line, it's again going to be hard for her to post this hand on the floor. Her arm is essentially in a situation in the same position where it was when I had the arm drag grip. Versus if I was just here, now her shoulder is outside my shoulder. When she willingly shoots her hand across, now her shoulder's on my center line or beyond. So now as she goes to post her far hand out, she can only go so far, go as far as you want. She's always going to fall over. Okay, because her arm is so far across. If I just use a typical one-on-one and her elbow's still outside my hip, now when she goes to post the hand, she posts far, I feel like I can't take my partner across. So we're playing here. She goes to shoot the hand in, and from here we go in the lock. When she goes to post the hand out, she can go as far as she wants to go, as far as you can. She's always going to fall over. Provided your partner keeps their hands locked on the darce, like so, you take your partner over. From the situation, that's not a big deal. Just think about shooting your elbow through and moving to a reverse underhook. What I can't have is my left elbow falling to the bottom side of my partner's bottom hip. Or now she can lock, as I come up, she locks the darce and I get put into trouble. So the second I see this, I just extend my body. I monitor my partner's wrist, so when she goes to move her hand, it's difficult. Now I just shoot to a far side underhook, and now when she goes to lock, it's useless. And now from here, we can go into our passes from this situation. Okay, so this time we're going to be baiting a far arm drag, not with the intention of actually dragging our partner, but forcing her and baiting her into a darce strangle, where we can go in with an inside wrist and hit a knee lever in return. All right, we're going to go over some entrances into our partner's legs now when they pull out of the forearm drag. Now, understand that you can enter all of these positions from a butterfly half guard as well. I just don't want to add so many leg lock entries at once that you guys just get bored of it. But I'm going to show you the entrances and the variations and how they're very similar, the entrances. Okay, so this time we're going to go into either a far arm drag, whenever our partner postures up really. We go into an arm drag, we go into a kimura, and our partner postures up like so. From the situation, I'm going to take a scoop grip like so, and I'm going to take a cross shoulder post. So my partner goes to come forwards into me, it's difficult. Now I'm just going to take my leg, I'm going to fire it over the top like so. Now, if I was in a butterfly guard, I can also do this, or half butterfly guard. I can just take my leg out and fire it over. So we didn't go over this before, but you can also do this. From the situation, as we spoke about, I can come up to my knees and start spinning the leg, but I can also just elect to take my hand through and grab my partner's heel like so. Now, what I don't want is to do things like this. My partner can easily feed her hand through, other hand, and start to lock a back head and arm where she can start to take my back. What I want is to give her the smallest amount of space possible to work with. Now, when I extend my arm, she's always going to be able to some degree get her hand through, okay? But I don't want to leave a giant gap here so it's very easy for her. So the key is I want to take my hand down to my partner's heel and I want to look to use my leg to off balance her to put her hand on the floor. Okay, what I can't have is just her hand coming through and she gets upper body grips. So I want to hit an initial kazushi by just putting her hand on the floor like so. So now she goes to lock her hands. It's very difficult from here. So I have the initial kazushi by putting her hand on the floor, and now I look to pull her leg towards me. So I'm going to take her toes in an arcing motion out and along the mat. As she goes to resist and pull her leg in towards her butt, the pulling out of the knee will always make it easier. What everyone tries to do is they try to push their partner away and pull the knee up to the stomach, and then you're fighting against your partner's back heel. When she back heels, it's pretty easy for her to keep that leg bent. But when I pull along the mat in a direction like so, now you're fighting against the configuration of your partner's leg, and your partner actually will injure her knee if she resists too hard, okay, because you're pulling the foot outside of the knee. Okay, from this position, now I don't want to expose my back. So I'm immediately going to take a grip here on my partner's back of my partner's kneecap, and a grip like so on my partner's calf muscle, and I glue my partner's entire shin to my chest. So now if she tries to go in and take my back and scoot around the corner, she can never access my back, and she can never free the knee. The issue is, if I don't have an Achilles grip from here, she can look to free the knee, point the knee out, and now go in and start to take my back. So I glue the knee to my chest and my belly button like so. So when she goes to point that knee out, she can never create back exposure, and this gives me time now to face her, and now I can start to go into my follow-up attacks. Okay? So that's the first option. We go for any situation where our partner postures up. Okay? Where I'm coming in, I'm trying to pull my partner in. She postures up either from a knee shield half guard or a butterfly half guard. You can do it just as well from both. I take my leg and I just fire to the outside, and I connect my hamstring to my partner's hip like so. Okay? What I can't have is a situation where my partner can pommel her hands inside my legs and start to give me problems where now she can't really do anything to me, but I also can't get my attacks on my partner's legs. So I want a strong connection of my body to hers. Now when she goes to pommel her hands in, she can't. Now I hit that initial kazushi. As I reach, I put her hand on the floor. When she goes to resist with the leg, I can easily control my partner's leg. When she goes to start taking my back or passing me or coming up and crushing me, she can't do any of that. And now from here, I have more than enough time to make transitions into my attacks. All right, so before we close out a knee shield half guard, just as with the butterfly half guard like so, we dealt with someone who we just cannot make grips. What can we do from here? So we're playing with a knee shield like so, and we feel like our partner just will not let us get grips. I go to come and scoop the leg. I can't scoop the leg. I can't get an underhook. I can't get grips on the wrist, and she's just pushing away from me, and she's stalling, and doing everything she can to move away from me. Okay. If I see this, I can just bring my leg inside, move to a power prop with a cross shoulder, and then move to a seated guard situation like so. I can just sit up if someone's stalling against me. If someone's doing this in combination with lacing my legs, and I know a lot of you are going to ask about this, they lace my legs like so, or just lace here, and they just sprawl the hips back and they're stalling. Whenever you see this, just go ahead. Whenever you see this, just post with the cross shoulder, move to a power prop, and then from here just bring a leg inside and just sit to a seated guard. If someone's really stalling on you, just sit up to a seated guard and play a seated guard. Okay? Because, like I said, half guard comes down to the simple fact that it's a reactive guard. Okay? It's not really a proactive guard. And if someone's really trying to stall, just like with closed guard, they're going to be able to stall. Okay? One of the most common stalling tactics, again, is just the hand comes inside and either just laces here or just goes to the hip. And guys are just sprawling down, not doing anything. You can't really move from here. You can't scissor your legs. You can't enter the legs. You can't really do anything, but your partner's never going to pass you from here as long as you use a cross shoulder post. Like, this is a terrible passing position for the most part, unless you stand up and start pommeling legs and things like that. But just driving forwards into me, you're never going to really pass anybody that's good from here. The cross shoulder post will always just allow you to move to a power prop. And then as she goes to come forwards into me, I can just bring my knee in and go to a seated guard. Okay, but there are a few things that we can do right off the bat to start going into situations where we can expose an underhook or a scoop grip. So she's playing a very cagey game from here. I'm going to start looking to play a pumping game with my legs. You can see this in my match with Kyle Boehm. Okay, where from here, she's playing distance game, and I'm just gonna start pumping and pulling my partner towards me and pushing out and away. Okay. My partner ultimately to pass wants to force me to half guard. She can't pass me if I'm in a seated guard. She needs to ultimately force me down to my back. So she wants to keep me here, which will always mean that when I go to push my partner away and threaten sitting up into a seated guard, she'll always have to push back into me. And this is where the pumping motion comes from. So I push away like so, I start threatening to come up, and then as she goes to push back into me, I start pulling my legs towards me. So I create this rocking motion where I can pull and push. So the rocking motion that I don't have the ability to create with a butterfly guard because I can't pull my partner into me nearly as well. But with a knee shield half guard, okay, from this situation, now I can really pull my partner in by pulling my knees into my chest and pulling my two heels to my butt. So I back heel with my legs. Okay, you see how these guys are coming forward? And I pull my knees into my chest. When you use this in combination, when you use these two mechanics in combination, the back heel and the pulling of the knees will always get my partner moving forwards into me. When I want to push my partner forwards away, I scissor my legs. So I push my top knee into her, and I pull my bottom knee towards me, like so. So I scissor my legs by pushing into her hips, and then I back heel with my bottom leg, and I pull my right knee into my chest, like so. So that I can push, and then she goes to pull into me, or drag into me, I can pull. So I create this rocking motion where I can always get her off balance and look to start going underneath and using that cross shoulder post to guide her out and away from me, or start moving into underhook situations. So worst case scenario, you feel like the person on top is just stalling. You can't get grips in the hands. You can't get grips in the legs. You go to scoop. She's posting. She's sprawling. She's doing all kinds of things. I start to create this rocking motion. Or I can start coming into situations where now I can rock my partner with pumping motion with the legs and start getting into opportunities where I can scoop or go into the upper body with underhooks and things like that. So worst case scenario, you can't make any grips. Use a constant kazushi going forwards and backwards with the pumping of the legs to create opportunities to go into attacks.